you would have to take a photo with an IPD of about 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, something like that, on the same subject material from far off to get anything that looked like a stereo photo, but it would look even weirder because it would be orthogonal. It would be, all your angles would be almost equivalent. And that's the problem with zoom lenses, is that you get rid of most of the dimension of your subject material. So that's the reason why for VR you need to use these fisheyes, which are kind of like super macro lenses, or they distort everything. But what matters is the stuff that's really close up, and you're going to have a lot of dimension, a lot of change in size as the items go off into the distance. And you have to do some amount of warping of the image to compensate for the distortion of the fisheye. You're going to lose some detail, but if the detail at the center is all you really care about. If they can do eye tracking and you can see it through the camera, maybe they can control the lenses in such a way that, or maybe just have the lenses dart back and forth like your eyes and then fill out the details, you know. I wouldn't put too much faith in using AI on something like that unless you had more than just two lenses. You had several different lens packs around the subject material, because then the AI will be able to, if you can give it a concept of how a human sees the world, then it can adapt what it sees to give you more perspective on things and more detail. But when it tries to fill out what you can't see, it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be incorrect. It's going to be a lie, because what it's trying to do is imagine what is there, and it'll be wrong. AI is only really good if you have plenty of data, and that the outcomes are always, that the outcomes are more true than not. And when you're talking about imagining stuff, imagining what's behind a plant or something, it's easier for the plant, it's harder for the scenery in back, unless somehow the AI has seen the scenery in back. It won't be able to fill it in with the scenery. And you got to pretty much move it everywhere in that. I'm sure it'd probably move it everywhere in that space, or some parts of it, so it can get some clue as to what's supposed to be behind. But if it doesn't have a clue of what's behind, it'll fill it out with whatever it imagines to be correct. It'll fool your eye, but it won't be correct. And I say in the case of music, the AI will be able to pick out what instruments are in the song and what they're playing, but it probably won't be able to replicate the style unless it knows enough about the musicians playing, or the music, or the person who composed the music. And when they talk about AI learning how to play breakout, it only becomes effective after about 500 gameplays. So how many composers do we have? 500 measures of notes that are the same for the same chord progression, and also at different tempos. For the same tempo, the same chord progression. It's not going to be effective. It might be effective across all classical musicians, and it'll choose whoever is the best at getting the most effect out of the audience. And the audience would say, I really like it at this part, or I really like it at this part. But the audience is going to have to say that for every single measure, if they like it or not. And nobody's going to do that. They're probably going to have to put like a heart monitor on you, and when you get excited, it'll make the assumption that it's because of that. But then you have to put the people in a closed room with the music being the only stimulus.